Just a week ahead of the Tokyo Olympics, the COVID-19 scenario there is described as alarming, with the highest daily infection cases reported in 6 months. There is an unprecedented challenge on the organizers this time around, as some players who had arrived from abroad have also tested positive for coronavirus. Tokyo is currently under a state of emergency, which will be lifted just a day before the games open next Friday. Good morning, I'm Abhiday Shrestha, and these are the headlines of the hour. Changing political alliance and intra-party feuds, major obstacles to the regular functioning of provincial assemblies as politics of power breach parliamentary dignity. A slight spike in death cases reported yesterday with 33 COVID-19 deaths. The local authorities of the Kathmandu Valley extend the prohibitory order by 10 more days. The Taliban proposes a 3-month ceasefire in Afghanistan in return for the release of 7,000 captured fighters. Afghan government negotiator calls the proposal a big demand. And world #1 tennis star Novak Djokovic of Serbia confirms he will take part at this summer's Olympic Games. Provincial assemblies, which are considered the main link in the implementation of federalism, are in a state of disarray. Political alliance and inter-party feuds have been major obstacles to the regular functioning of the provincial assemblies, while there has been changing political equation breaching parliamentary dignity. More in this report.
Gandaki Province Assembly was on schedule to endorse the budget on Wednesday. However, the main opposition CPN-UML, which had lost government reins just a month ago, obstructed the parliamentary proceedings and even resorted to vandalism inside the assembly hall. The ruling party endorsed the budget amid tightened security. Likewise, amid escalating disputes, parliamentary equation in Lumbini province has been largely manipulated time and again. In the budget session on Thursday, the ruling CPN-UML lawmakers themselves boycotted the assembly due to a lack of majority. Meanwhile, in Karnali province, the budget has been announced through an ordinance after the provincial assembly session was prorogued overnight. The scenario in Sudar Pashchim is no different, with CPN-UML in both the government and the opposition, as development works have been largely affected. In Province 1 and Province 2, the respective provincial assemblies have not been able to finalize the provincial name amid escalating disputes. In Bagmati province, the fate of budget is uncertain due to inter-party wrangling in the ruling CPN-UML, even as the provincial assembly endorsed policy and programs. The scenario doesn't augur well for the future of federalism in the face of the ongoing political power games at the provincial assemblies.
Meanwhile, the Lumbini Provincial Assembly has been concluded. The province chief, under the recommendation of the Chief Minister, ended the House session effective from last night after failing to introduce the budget from the Provincial Assembly. Prior to this, the budget for the fiscal year 2078-79 failed to pass from Lumbini province as the lawmakers from the ruling party itself left the Assembly Hall yesterday. Except for the Speaker, in Lumbini province, there are 41 members from the ruling party consisting CPN-UML and the Mahanta Thakur faction of Janata Samajwadi Party, while there are 41 members from CPN Maoist Center, Nepali Congress, the Upendra Yadav faction of Janata Samajwadi Party and Rashtriya Jana Morcha Party. 40 members from the ruling party and 41 members from the opposition were present in yesterday's provincial assembly. Meanwhile, Lumbini provincial government has been preparing to introduce the budget through an ordinance. The nation continues to reel under corona crisis as 33 individuals succumbed to the virus yesterday. There has been a slight spike in the number of deaths, while the fatality rate continues to stand at 1.5%. Meanwhile, 1,782 new coronavirus cases were reported in the country yesterday, taking the total infections tally to over 662,000. Based on the latest report by the Health Ministry, 8,256 tests through the PCR method were carried out yesterday, while the infection rate continues to stand at an alarmingly high at 21.5%. The Kathmandu Valley alone reported 553 new cases yesterday. 1,756 individuals registered full recovery, taking the total number of recoveries to 626,468, as the recovery rate stands at 94.6%. According to the Health Ministry, there are 26,639 active cases, out of which 24,025 are in home isolation, while 602 are in intensive care units and 171 corona patients are being treated with ventilator support. The meeting of the three chief district officers of the Kathmandu Valley yesterday decided to extend the ongoing prohibitory order by 10 days until 25th of July. The chief district officers have decided to extend the prohibitions effective from today, further lifting some restrictions. The meeting of the three chief district officers held yesterday decided on the new modality of the prohibitory order. Groceries, departmental stores and various other shops can remain open until 7 in the evening. Vehicles carrying construction materials can operate from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Takeaway and home delivery services can be provided until 7 in the evening. Likewise, long route private and public vehicles for essential works will be allowed to operate. Meanwhile, prohibitions have been extended on public gatherings, operation of cinema halls, party palaces, fitness clubs, salons, religious sites, as well as sporting events with spectators. The country should have been self-reliant on electricity by now if we are to believe the words of the Ministry of Energy, Water Resource and Irrigation. The ministry, issuing a white paper 3 years ago, had announced to make the country independent on electricity generation by this time. The country, however, is importing 64% of the total electricity demand. According to Nepal Electricity Authority, there is no alternative to importing electricity for the next 5 years amid increasing demand. More in this report.
The Ministry of Energy 3 years back had proclaimed of increasing foreign exchange by exporting electricity. The ministry had issued a white paper claiming to make the country self-reliant. Meanwhile, the country has been importing 64% electricity from neighboring India. The country's expenditure on electricity is over 20 billion rupees annually. The country had installation capacity of producing 1,073 megawatts of electricity 3 years back, while the demand was around 1,300 megawatts. According to the Electricity Authority, the installation capacity has now reached 1,608 megawatts, while the demand has reached 1,455 megawatts. The inability to produce electricity as per the installation capacity has prolonged the country's power dependency on southern neighbors. Various hydel projects of Nepal Electricity Authority have been producing 5,600 megawatts of electricity, while private hydro projects are producing 4,500 megawatts. The country has to import 18,236 megawatts of electricity from India when the demand is high. Meanwhile, around 150 megawatts of electricity is being wasted in the absence of transmission lines. The operation of 120 megawatt hydro project has been halted due to damages caused by flooded waters. The Nepal Electricity Authority, meanwhile, claims that it will take 5 more years for the country to be self-reliant on electricity. The scenario has surfaced as neither the government nor the private sector could perform as per their target in the project. The Upper Tamakoshi hydropower project, initiated by the authority some 11 years ago with the aim of producing 456 megawatt electricity, has begun its production with 76 megawatt at the moment. The ministry that had announced its plan 3 years ago through the white bond of producing 15,000 megawatts of electricity in 10 years has failed to live up to the expectation. Private sectors see the ministry's failure to provide service and facilities as per the bond and the lack of transmission lines as big dampeners. The history of power generation in the country exceeds 110 years. Sadly, the Himalayan nation needs to depend on imports to balance its power demands.
In our public voice segment, we had asked the local residents in Surkhet what should be done to control water-induced disasters such as floods and landslides. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
Public voice.
बाढी पहिरो जाने ठाउँमा बिरुवा रोप्नु पर्यो, तर्पणन गरिदिनु पर्यो, खोलामा घर हाल्न दिनु भएन।
विश्लेषण गरेर हजुरको नदी नालाहरू कटान गर्ने उसमा सुकुम्बासी बस्तीहरूलाई न्यूनीकरण गरेर अलिकति सरकारले ध्यान दिएमा जस अलिकति रोकथाम हुन्छ।
जोखिममा भएको बस्तीलाई सरकारले सुरक्षित ठाउँमा सार्दिनु पर्यो।
सडक निर्माण गर्ने क्रमले गर्दा पनि बाढी पहिरो गर्ने एकदमै अत्याधिक समस्या निम्तिएको छ। त्यसकारण चाहिँ वैज्ञानिक तरिकाले गर्ने अब जाने चाहिँ बस्तीहरू कम छ त्यस्तो ठाउँबाट गर्नुपर्छ।
सरकारले अब राम्रो ठाउँमा व्यवस्थित गरिदिनु पर्यो।
खोलाले कटान गरेका जग्गाहरू छन् तिनीहरूलाई पनि अतिक्रमण गर्नु भएन। त्यो खोला हिँड्ने कुनै न कुनै बेलामा त्यो खोला बग्न सक्छ।
And it's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And here's the question. What's your primary expectation from the new government? Your options are A, corruption control, B, development and easy living, and C, not much hopeful. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And it's time now for the sports news.
Sports news.
Meanwhile, Nepal's Tokyo Olympics contingent was bade farewell by President Bidyadevi Bhandari yesterday. A special function was held at the President's office, Sital Niwas, where the Olympic squad was bade farewell by President Bhandari. A 26-member team that includes only 5 athletes and 4 coaches is leaving for Tokyo Olympics that kicks off next Friday. Gaurika Singh and Alex Shah represent Nepal in swimming, while Saraswati Chaudhary will contest in athletics, Kalpana Pariyar in shooting, and Sonia Bhatta will participate in the judo event. Gaurika Singh and Alex Shah will carry the country's flag during March Past at the inaugural ceremony of the Games. And that's all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Have a good morning.